Anyway, I want to echo Ken in thanking all of the host of hosts that are sharing the hosting of this event today. And I most definitely want to thank Calestis for inviting me to speak on this panel on geospatial and development. When I was originally asked to speak up here, I was asked to speak on geospatial policy because that is the major thrust of the meeting. And even though I'm the geographer of the Department of State, I actually do not set geospatial or geographic policy for the State Department. That's done by the Chief Information Officer. I'm happy to engage on these issues, and we do all the time, but I can't speak officially on behalf of the State Department on those issues, which is why this serves also as a disclaimer that anything I will say today doesn't represent the views of the State Department or the U.S. government. But what my job is at the Department of State is I manage production of geospatial analysis, in addition to maps, in addition to written analysis. My office is in the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, and we are always thinking about different themes at the appropriate scale, with the needed priorities for the requisite customer. And in this case, very often, that's not my office that sets these priorities, but the State Department policy customer. And today's panel that we're about to embark on is on the theme of development, and we work in my office every day on a regular basis on a host of different products related to that theme. We do some modeling on risk, which can include climate change, food security, climate, all factors that are critical for understanding policies that are needed to guide development and governance in society. Water issues, not only water scarcity, but water management and water sharing. In this case, a project to drill for water when refugees were being relocated in Chad. Most of my examples today are going to be from Africa. A host of health issues, in this case a model that was done to show that the spread of cholera in Zimbabwe was actually not along the waterways as expected, but throughout urban areas because of the lack of good management and poor sanitation and hygiene. Population is a critical foundation theme of any development-focused issues. An issue increasingly, we're also viewing urbanization as the most critical way to view sustainable development in developing countries. And my office has embarked on a variety of different projects with a number of different partners, including this model we worked out with the Census Bureau and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency to try to bound different polygons on population estimations for a variety of different events and incidents that would be introduced. On the theme of partners, I want to give a little shout out to Doug Richardson and the Association of American Geographers, because they've been a very strong partner of ours. They're right in town in DC, and we strategize on a number of different efforts that we work with other countries and with geographers in the United States. This is a good example of a project that was launched in the World Summit for Sustainable Development in Johannesburg more than 10 years ago now, and is continuing onward today still with a partnership between the AAG and the State Department and USAID using, it was originally started using digital elevation data from the Shuttle Radar Topographic mission that flew when it was rolled out for Africa at WSSD in 2001. The State Department itself has, under Secretary Clinton and her Quadrennial Development and Diplomacy Review, launched a number of issues in the themes of what she called smart power and public outreach. This is an example of Apps for Africa, which I think was a very successful campaign. And again, that's something that my office and others have worked on over time, the list of the winners here. And at the end of the day, if we can influence policy by objective analysis. That's the goal, I think, of being able to use good data in a geospatial analytical format to help decision making. And this is an example of one of the efforts that we were very successful at, where we produced a document that was documenting atrocities in Darfur, based originally on analysis of classified imagery that showed before and after damage, a declassified data set that was shared with the UN and the NGOs to build up data over time showing when certain villages were damaged and the refugees fled. We launched an interview project in Chad of the refugees from Darfur across the border, so that we were, instead of just trying to respond to the press that was asking our policymakers, why don't we declare genocide in Darfur, and the response by our lawyers was that we need more than just 1,000 different bylines by different reporters. We need to show that it meets the criteria of the Geneva Conventions, and it's systematic and it's targeted against a particular group. And you can do this by doing a good geospatial analysis, in this case with interviews and imagery and maps put together into a document where Secretary Clinton went before Congress and used that document to declare genocide. I use this as an example of something that I've been talking about with a number of people up here over the past few weeks about geospatial policy and the importance of information on decision making. And too often our tradecraft stops at the data and map stage and doesn't get effectively launched into being able to affect decisions. The remainder of my time, I'm just going to briefly go through a couple of projects that I manage that are focused on Africa in large part, and are ways to generate data related to governance, but mostly in areas that are less developed. We have a imagery to the crowd tasking tool that tiles up imagery that can then be downloaded, and vectors can be drawn on the image. And we ran an experiment for 10 refugee camps in Kenya and Ethiopia. And in 48 hours, we, based on the raw imagery, we went from this was what was in the Humanitarian Open Street Team maps, and this was an example of how it was filled, and this is a blow-up of that just from one of 10 refugee camps. I have a poster on this that'll be up tomorrow, and a loop that shows this process that we're trying to use elsewhere. We also worked with the Red Cross in northern Uganda. We worked with USAID in Australia, and are currently working in Kathmandu. A blow-up of those a little bit clearer. And then we ingest it into our own cyber GIS web service at my Humanitarian Information Unit. The links will be available online. And finally, I want to briefly go through a project that we have called Global Dialogue for Emerging Science and Technologies, which was launched by the State Department Science Advisor and followed up by a grant that the State Department manages through the Association of American Geographers, through an NGO in Africa, that's geared to trying to build capacity among African geoscientists, link them with other counterparts in the US, and launch projects that can help the Mapping Africa for Africa initiative of UN Environmental Commission for Economic Commission for Africa, and be used by communities and governments to again help them make strategic decisions. I think these are all facts that are well known. I promised Calestis I'd be in under 10 minutes, so I'm running through these, the various different types of themes that are needed if we're going to get good geospatial information at the appropriate scale for mapping at the right level of detail. Whoops. These are the examples of the projects that we've run so far as part of the program. And it's designed so that it can be self-sustaining, because a lot of projects, as many of you know, they don't link effectively enough with with the local talent, with universities, with the governments, with the NGOs, with other donors, with public-private sector. And if we can't keep that loop going, then the project won't be sustainable. And just in a short time, in the research we did when we first launched this program, we were amazed at how many links already existed among various different organizations inside Africa and outside Africa. It's just that we needed a program to better utilize and link that very rich network that already existed. And this is the mechanism that we call whereby we have access into the knowledge base of experts, and we need to identify what priority projects can be then either funded or trained up or build capacity to try to generate information. And we've had a few projects of late where we've managed to, I think, very successfully extract data from imagery and leave it behind with the local communities after we train them so that they could then share it with their governing structures to try to make better decisions. The next step in this project is going to be a project we hope to run in South Sudan to link it with the February 2014 scheduled census. We're going to have a participatory mapping component of that, where we rely on local knowledge and local expertise, let the people map their own geography. One example of what I think is one of the better participatory mapping projects is run by my good friend Jerry Dobson from the American Geographical Society and University of Kansas, called Bowman Expeditions, where they have worked in a number of different countries training local people and having a very, very robust GIS with very good metadata. And they're doing a project in South Sudan as well, but one of the difficulties is they're doing community-based mapping, but it's not sure that the data are actually being transferred to the government. Why is this important? Just a little story quickly. I was on a barge from International Organization of Migration where refugees are returning from the Democratic Republic of Congo into the Dinka Boer region of South Sudan. Women and children were on the barge. The men and the young boys were walking along the river with their cattle. Over the 20 years of their exile and their refugee status, their cattle size increased fourfold. That was their wealth. They were coming back to communities. There was no land tenure. They're not mapped. They don't, the rights of the cattle to graze could certainly cause difficulties. So that's just one of the challenges that I think are going to be faced in this next phase of our GDEST Africa program in trying to help get a better, build fundamental data sets for South Sudan. Thank you.